now it's really being able to help any entrepreneur, that wants to grow their business or scale their business. And the nice part is that's literally what got me through rehab, because the biggest thing in rehab was that I noticed was, when you go in there, obviously your income quits,
Mm.
or you lose your job or, whatever. And fortunately for me, I built up a residual income. So I knew every Monday for the 3 weeks I was in there that was coming in.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Ignition Path and Elevate podcast. So I've got the pleasure of having a guest who not only has a entrepreneurial path for my Ignition Path podcast, but he also is a first responder like myself and had some mental health struggles and some things that he dealt with that he can speak very, very professionally and highly about when it comes to my first responder podcast. So this is going to be a dual podcast. It'll be put on both channels, and just take out of it what you will. You may be a first responder out there looking to start your own business, so you may be able to get a nugget there. You may be a business person who wants to know a little bit more about what we face as first responders. So today I've got Zach Loescher.
Yep. You're a
It's not
perfect butcher.
Loescher, not Loescher.
Oh,
Zach
I kind of
Loescher.
like I like
I
that
met
first
him a
one better.
couple. Heck, it's not even been a week ago that you and I met through a mutual. What is it? Like a networking event. I met somebody else, and then they found out what I do and said, "Oh my God, you got to talk to Zach." So Zach and I and this other individual jumped on a Zoom call and talked for 2 hours that night. So found a lot of stuff in common, and I invited him to come on the podcasts, and here we are doing the first dual Elevate and Ignition Path podcast. So Zach, welcome to the shows.
Thank you, Kyle. Awesome. Yeah, it was like a week, and yeah, that was a good 2 hours or so that night. So I appreciate it, Kyle. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
man,
me.
I learned a lot of stuff. We both kind of shared some good nuggets with each other with not only business, but we didn't go too deep into the first responder stuff because the other gentleman on the phone was not a first responder, so we didn't really dive into that. But definitely want to talk about both of them. So go ahead and tell us all about where you came from, what you did as a first responder. You don't have to get too heavy into the mental health, whatever you want to do. Like I said, this is a open format where we just kind of freely talk about what things that have challenged us and things we've faced, along with, eventually we'll get talking into the business side of stuff too.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I always got to play along and ride along a little bit because it was a volunteer department. So you know how that is. You got your pager back then, and it went off and you rolled. So I grew up that, and then went. They obviously got older and went to Denver to play college soccer at Metro State, and knew I really didn't want the business path at that time because I'd grown up in it with my dad and my grandpa having a Firestone home appliance electronic dealership, and knew the hours they kind of worked. But I was thankful they were always, my dad was always at sports or whatever, so he worked it out, but just wasn't the best thing. So it happened to be my first year down at Metro State. There was a first responder course that fit my degree as one of my electives, so I took it. And that's when I met the chief or the captain for station, I think it was Engine 11 in Denver, and kind of that's where it all just started. Took that course and then started in search and rescue because I was volunteer, so I could do that while I was playing college soccer. And then so that was in '96, and it just went from there. Not long after, got my EMT, and basically was on trucks for up through, I don't remember the year, probably about 2011, 10, somewhere in there, 11. Then did a lot of dispatching after that. But yeah, being in the Denver Metro 911 system, and my last truck I was on was not in the best neighborhood, so we were pretty much guaranteed a shooting or stabbing every rotation. So
wow.
it took a toll on you. And back then, there's not the mental health help that there is now. That
Right.
we got off shift, and we knew in Denver where there were 4 bars that opened at 6 a.m., depending on what part of the town you were in. And that was our decompression, and that was our mental health. So at 6 or 7 or 8 when we got off shift, that's where we were. And then, so fast forward, got out of that in 2017, and then COVID came, so the drinking became more because I was working from home. Um, and then moved to Michigan, and finally last year on 11/24/23 went into rehab and got help for it. And in what, 9, 8, 7 days, something like that, whatever the number is, It'll be 1 year or so, but a
That's
lot of it
fantastic.
was,
Well,
yeah.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I know that's a daily struggle from how I understand it. And I come from a long history of alcoholism in my family, and my dad was definitely an alcoholic before I was born, but he stopped drinking a little bit before I was born, and so I don't know him as the alcoholic. So, which is to me is I'm really lucky. But he was very open about it. He never sugarcoated things. I remember one time I had friends of mine drop me off, and I was pretty inebriated one night coming home, and he was like, "Boy, you tied one on, didn't you?" And he got me up at the bright and early crack of dawn and got me on the I think we were working on like a single story house that day, putting in windows, and he's like, "Yep, come on out." He was like, "The good news is I'm glad you had a hangover." He goes, "Because I could drink a 24 pack and not have a hangover the next morning." He goes, "That was my problem. The first day I woke up with a hangover, I realized I didn't ever want to drink again. I quit cold turkey." I was like, "Well, wow." I mean, now knowing that now and hearing it in my head from him telling me back when I was, early 20s, that's pretty significant to do a cold turkey thing. That's pretty tough as it is from how I've seen it in the healthcare field and talk to people about it. But congratulations on that. That is a huge feat in itself. So when did you actually stop so when you moved to Michigan, you weren't doing any more first responder stuff at all?
No, it was, I think it was 2017. I actually got out.
Did you retire, or did you just have to be like, I'm done, I'm burnt out? Like talk about that
Yeah, well, it was
experience
all,
a little
yeah,
bit.
Denver for the most part. Everything I did was private EMS. So there was no 401k, there was no pension, there was no
Gotcha.
any retirement per se. It was, but yeah, it was 100% burnt out. Like, it got more into the politics and everything back then in 2017 that it wasn't, let's go help people. And that's what came first. It was more the politics side. And that's what I got tired of.
Gotcha.
Um, and in like 12, I jumped in back into networking, even though I said I wouldn't. Because I started Amway in 1999, did that for
Oh
six or
my
seven
gosh, yeah.
years.
I did Quick Star for a while.
It was, I think, the year after I got into Amway, Quickstar came out, if I remember right. But Amway gave me great, the Book of the Month Club and all that. The personal development side gave me that I always have taken forward because I went to college to play sports, and that was it. Basically, I would
Hmm.
never went to college because
Yeah.
it didn't, appease me at all. So, but yeah, and then so 2012, I swore I'd never get back into networking, and a buddy in high school talked me to get into Visalis. Did that until things
Wow.
there changed.
We have more in common than I thought
Yeah,
because I did my sales too.
yeah.
If you say Sensi, we're just going to shut this off right now.
So no, I'm just
My
kidding.
wife did. My wife did Sensi, and she's like, "I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is
Yeah,
like my wheelhouse."
that the founders there took it in a different direction, and but so I always had it in there, and then found leaving there, started what I leave. Oh, went into the solar cells in Denver, which I used a lot of the online experience that I had to generate more of my leads and everything like that using software.
Right.
And did a little, I think, isogenics, Melaleuca for a little bit, just nothing really excited me. And I always loved technology. So about 4 years ago, found Bo with my Genius Leads, and that's where it's been. And the AI and the technology that's out there now is just
Tremendous.
kept me going. And obviously,
Yeah.
then going into rehab last year, is like added basically a second level to that, just because it's the story that I can help others that once you come out of
Right.
rehab, you think it's basically over and there's nothing you can do except for that $12 an hour job at the factory that, so
Yeah. Being an
basically surviving too.
entrepreneur coming out of something like that is definitely a little bit more. As long as you're willing to build the skills that you may need for it. Sounds like you had been kind of dabbling in it, even in when you were still in EMS. You started getting back into it, which is, I'm not sure what your schedule was like. I mean, my schedule is 24/48s. I'm not sure what the private schedule was like, and here private can be 24/48s or it can be 12, so or eights depending on where you
Yeah,
work.
it was modified Kelly. So 24 on, 24 off, 24 on.
Okay. Okay. So it was a little bit. So you had those days off where you can like, okay, I'm not doing anything today. Let me, work on my self development. Let me have that. So now let's just talk a little bit more about. So you got done doing EMS. And then you were still drinking, and so that was still an issue. So the stuff, the stressors of EMS caused you to, well, for lack of better terms, kind of drove you to having this lifestyle of being addicted to alcohol and the disease that it is. And then when you left EMS, that didn't stop. Did you have any other mental health? Like, did you do anything mental health wise when you got out, or your quit was the mental health, and then you still just dove into the bottle just because it was there now? Is that how? Talk about that.
It was always the whole denial part that I don't have an issue, even though, one was not enough and two was too many every time I drank. And, it wasn't, and nobody, like, all my friends in Denver then were that drinking circle. So, nobody's going to tell you anything because you're all drinking, so it wasn't until I got to Michigan with Jen, got away from that circle, and Jen having me open my eyes, was then the one that, okay, yeah, I need to do something. So, and
Yeah.
it was like, 11:24, 23 at 7 p.m. I think it was actually before that, but I call it 7 p.m. was my last drink. And I literally, I just kind of like your dad, quit cold turkey. And
Nice. Well, that probably was a rough couple of weeks, but
yeah, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, Sunday.
now, did you seek like official help, or was it when I mean, cold turkey, a lot of people think, okay, I'm done, I'm not going to do it anymore, but knowing that itch is probably there, or did you get into the AA? Did you do all that whole path and everything as well? And then,
I went into rehab for 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, or just shy of 3 weeks, 20 days technically. Yeah. And, so I quit on a Friday, figured out Saturday, kind of tried to use the available system, which we figured out is flawed, because if you call off your cell phone, it's based on your area code on your phone. So I kept getting transferred to Colorado, even though I was living in Michigan. So there was that little hiccup in the system. But they got me everything. And then Sunday I went in, thinking I was going to go in after talking to people. Like, they're like, oh, just bring a couple changes of clothes for overnight or something. And then they're like, well, no, you're here to stay. I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, cool. Let's do it. But I knew if I left at that point, then I wasn't going to come back and I wasn't going to do it. So,
Right.
And
You just stayed and hunkered down.
Yeah.
Now, in that process, when you went to rehab, because I've never been to rehab, and I haven't really spoke in depth with anybody that has. Do they focus? I mean, the addiction, of course, is something that they concentrate on, but do they discuss mental health and get you trained up and about how our brain works, or anything? They don't focus on that. It's just truly the addiction.
It's truly the addiction side. And then when you get out, there's supposed to be mental health help, which I still have yet from, it's called CNS in Michigan. And we're in November now. And that was, well, in March or April, they were supposed to start that, which it's still in the pending process. But knock on wood, my rehab that I went to and some connections, well, Dwayne actually was it, that got me in touch with Chuck, which is a hypnotherapist. And that is, I think I've done a little mental health therapy here and there, like tried it with one of the online services for about a month, and it didn't do much. But yeah, with Chuck, it was like night and day, and it's been that way since May when I started with Chuck. So knock on wood, I found him, because that's really the mental health side that I needed.
Right. Well, that's cool that you got that too, because, and that's one thing, when we're talking about the Elevate podcast part of it, is I like to bring different success stories on of different things, burnout, alcoholism. I've had one other recovering alcoholic on my podcast early on, what he did and what therapy worked for him. It's good to hear that, there's someone that has, okay, I have had a hypnotherapist on my podcast before and talk about the benefits of it. Actually, a hypnotherapist that is a first responder he was an ex-EMT. Knowing that works for people, it's good to share that, and good for someone to hear that works. So if they're, oh, listen, I don't want to do talk therapy, or I don't want to go and do, whatever, I'm going to be having a guest on that does ketamine, and that's really new, so, and for her mental health and her PTSD. So it's going to be pretty amazing that, when you take the Elevate podcast as a whole, you'll be able to search the system and find out different things that are out there. I don't offer any of them. I don't endorse any of them except for the ones that I did. I can endorse those because I actually, had benefit from it. Like my sponsor, this would be a good time to go to my sponsor. This is a system that I used to kind of get over the hump on some things that I was struggling with. Mental health and people pleasing, and the Funky Five, you'll hear what it is. So we'll take this as a time to go do that, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into the business side for the Ignition Path podcast on the backside of this. So real quick word from our sponsors. Let me ask you a question. Would your life be better if whatever you're struggling with, you could finally break free of? So what am I talking about? The Funky Five. What's the Funky Five, you ask? It's those oh so familiar struggles: procrastination, people-pleasing, perfectionism, low self-confidence, and the one I call the big A, anxiety. For years, I struggled to manage my own version. I call them my Funky Three. I had 3 of these Funky Five weighing me down. I've tried just about everything to deal with them. Then a guest on my podcast, Daniel Packard, shared with me a profound thought that I had never thought of. So Daniel, a UC Berkeley engineer, spent 8 years working with this team and over 3,000 people to create an approach that doesn't just help you manage these issues, it actually frees you from them by getting right to the root of what's holding you back. So after meeting with Daniel, I decided to give it a shot, and within 6 short weeks, gone. Truly gone. I was so amazed. The number one thing I was dealing with was procrastination, but miraculously, a deeper-rooted struggle with people-pleasing, something I'd been unknowingly battling for a lifetime, lifted entirely. And the anxiety that came with them both, gone as well. Are you tired of battling any of your Funky Fives? People-pleasing, procrastination, perfectionism, low self-confidence, and the biggest happy killer of them all, the A word, anxiety. Imagine how much better life would be if you weren't just managing these things, but free of them, quickly, and yes, permanently. If you're ready for a real solution, head to danielpackard.com and get his free 90-minute training. Daniel himself will walk you through what makes his approach so different and teach you a technique you can use immediately to start feeling the difference. So if any of the Funky Five, or maybe your own version of the Funky Five, are holding you back, don't wait. Visit danielpackard.com. You can truly get results and start living the life you want. Okay, and we're back, and give Daniel a call or send him a message inside of the system. Go to his website, find out what Funky Fives that are weighing you down. Tremendously changed everything about my procrastination that led into my people pleasing, that then therefore gave me the anxiety, and all of that stuff completely gone now, whole different look. So if you're struggling with any of those Funky Five talked about a minute ago, go ahead and look up Daniel and touch base with him. So back to Zach. Hi, Zach, and thanks for holding on for that little snippet. And I host the Ignition Path podcast for entrepreneurs that actually describes their path through entrepreneurism and then elevate for the first responder mental health. So we've dabbled in the first responder mental health a little bit. Dove deep in a little bit with Zach here. And now we've dabbled in his business path with self-development and other businesses that he's tried to do. Like I said, as a first responder, we typically do something else. Some people do landscaping. Some people do concrete. Some people dive into, I did voiceover for a while. I still do voiceover. I've started podcasting. I do construction. So us first responders, we typically have another job or two or another career. And a lot of times that those of us that have any type of entrepreneurial path or mindset, we start diving into things and seeing what sticks. So tell us about a little bit deeper on the path that you took once you decided not to be a first responder, and that decision and all that, and how that went, and where we're at now and where we're at today with you.
Yeah, no, it took some years and a lot of trials and tribulations in different companies and to find a fit. And I finally, about 4 years ago, found an automation, a software company. And I just had got kind of tired of trying to find the perfect person that wanted to lose weight or that wanted to travel, or the 2 big ones that I usually had done. And, especially during the COVID times, and, nobody was traveling, the money wasn't there. Same thing with, health and wellness, the money wasn't there. So, but every business still needed lead generation and engagement and things like that. So when I found the software, I just knew that was the right thing to do. And I can talk to anybody and everybody, whether it's an online entrepreneur or a brick and mortar. So, that just kind of fell into place. But, it was a lot of, probably 4 or 5 different companies after leaving Visalis even that, just wasn't the right fit ever. And, now it's really being able to help any entrepreneur, that wants to grow their business or scale their business. And the nice part is that's literally what got me through rehab, because the biggest thing in rehab was that I noticed was, when you go in there, obviously your income quits,
Mm.
or you lose your job or, whatever. And fortunately for me, I built up a residual income. So I knew every Monday for the 3 weeks I was in there that that was coming in. Um, and it's just over, time building that up. But with the, software automation, that was something that, I liked health and wellness, and, obviously playing soccer, that, was a part of my life,
Hmm.
but it wasn't like something that was truly like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life kind of thing. You find a lot of people too that, in the health and wellness that, they get healthy, they lose their 20 or 30 or 40 pounds or whatever it was, and then they're kind of back to their normal lifestyle again, kind of. So it was really a revolving door on that, which, it didn't matter how hard I tried, or, that was just, that was the game there. So with the lead software, literally from the day I saw it, I knew that was the thing to do. And, I kind of like the whole solving problems, kind of like, in EMS where, I'm solving a problem, and you got to get down to what the problem is to be able to solve it. It's the same thing, whether they're, how their Facebook's set up, what they're doing for lead generation, is it just spammy pitching first message, not, building know, like, and trust. So that whole part was something that I found really, I guess, fascinating, for better lack of term, that and a different way to help people outside of EMS, still helping them grow their business, which, obviously health is a big part of, if you don't have your health, then you're not going to have anything after that anyway. But, I just got tired of focusing on that part where I could focus on, and have connections for all the other fields that I could help them grow their business now, without the limitations that, I'm only looking for people that want to lose weight. And, there's a ton of great companies out there, people will find them. But I just like the technology side. I've always liked technology. I used Microsoft Front Page back in, 2000 or whenever it came out, and
Oh,
built my
wow.
dad. And yeah,
That's a name I haven't heard forever.
yeah, built, my
Wow.
dad's website for his business. So I'd always dabbled
Yeah.
in technology. And
I
yeah,
think the
I
first time
was,
I ever built a website was, I think it was in Yahoo's web builder back in the day.
so yeah. And, I'd done other, lead generation companies, or, where, we had the beacons. You'd put a beacon and it was like 100-yard radius. You'd be able to push your message onto your cell phone notification. And, Google shut that down. Then it went to a pin drop on the Google map, and Google shut that down a little later. So it was
Yeah, that's a
figuring out.
that's a good point there. Are you finding with this new service that you are representing that when Google's algorithms change, does that mess with what you're doing, or you just overcome and adapt? Like,
Yeah, no,
or is
no,
it
because
flaw?
yeah, we're not relying on Google anymore. So it's Facebook and Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, and so, a lot of it, and a lot of it with the software is, it's not just your canned speech like a lot of other automation companies. It's the same pitch over and over and over and over. So, which is an easy way for an entrepreneur to get into trouble with Facebook, where, I sent out 249 engagement messages yesterday with 249 absolutely 100% different messages
Wow. Oh,
geared
because the
towards,
AI is building
yeah,
it
because
for
the
you.
AI is switching it to be
Yeah, you've
to
commented on a
fit that.
couple of my, since we became friends on Facebook, you've commented on a couple of my things. I'm like, is this him or is this his AI? But it's still, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's very appropriate from our early discussion and what he knows of me
Yep.
and what he does. I'm like, that's 100% a perfect, comment. So I've been watching the comments. Most likely your bot's doing, but they're really good, and they're sincere. And, I mean, and the way I see it is it's still because you put all the information into the system to when you showed it to me, you build the responses per your personality. So if you were an upfront, harsh, rash kind of person, that would come across upfront, harsh, and rash, but you're more of a caring, understanding, nurturing person in your business, and that's exactly how the message came across. So that's pretty interesting. So talk a little bit about, did you help develop the software, or were you the inventor of it, or just someone that got in early and
early. Good friends with the business owner, actually living with him right now in Texas. But yeah, and we do connect with the development team, easily on a weekly basis, multiple times during the week. Like I'll beta test a couple upgrades before they're pushed out to make sure it's working right, things like that.
you're kind of like a super user? Yeah.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So yeah, and kind of know what's coming up and what's not coming up or what's not going to work. Or ask them like one software they tried to do green and red, so like when a friend request was sent out, it turned green instead of red, and then but Facebook changed some stuff up on their back end, so they had to take the green and the red away. So we were thought it was a good idea. It was for a little while, and then Facebook changed up what they did. So it still sends a friend request, still sends a message. We just don't get to have the nice, cute little red and green
To kind of differentiate yourself. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, but,
well, fantastic. Now, when it comes to the path that got you to here, it's understandable that I'm a firm believer in the old concept of failing forward. So when we fail forward and we don't give up, and that's exactly how the Elevate podcast came about from earlier, and Ignition Path from that matter of fact, because I was only doing the Elevate podcast, and that was a fail forward. I was doing webinars trying to get people, first responders, to come on and get my coaching for mental health. I spent a whole year developing a system, and no one showed up to no first responders are out there, breaking down the doors to get mental health help. So we have to do it a little bit more strategically. So I know for a fact that I get introduced to a podcasting group that explained to me podcasting can be used in a way that not only gives you authority in the space, but actually connects you with people like yourself and people that have good information that could possibly be collaborators of some sort. So I was like, wait a second. And with the software that I use that I showed you the other night, when it comes to my post-production, I'm no longer post-producing in an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm doing it in 10 to 20 minutes, and I'm running other people's shows. So people that I run their shows for, they record, they send me the episode, and I do the rest of it for them. And that was a business that I kind of pivoted away from the first responder mental health stuff. Still did the podcast, but just pivoted away for a little bit, got this business, under wraps, and it's full circle. Now I'm interviewing, and it's the first episode where I'm doing Elevate and Ignition Path. So it all blends together because, a lot of us first responders out there do have second jobs, do have an entrepreneurial path. So it's a very good fit that you're on today and kind of releasing this dual episode with me. And I appreciate that. And, and it saves a whole nother conversation just specifically about the business or the mental health. So it's going to be, I'll have to see how this one trends when I put it up on YouTube and all that and see which one gets more views. I could put the exact same episode up at the exact same day with two different podcast names and go from there. But yeah, so, the entrepreneurial path is the Ignition Path is what we dive deep in. I thank you so much for coming on today and explaining all that. Dive a little bit more in what your software does, like the 30,000 foot thing. If anybody is interested in this type of secondary business that may be looking out there, whether they're a first responder or whether they're an entrepreneur that is looking for the next thing that is a fit because they've been falling forward or failing forward. So tell us a little bit about what your 30,000 foot view is of what you're representing now, and then we'll wrap things up.
Today I think I had 3 or 4 birthdays that, automatically went out, but out there. But the cool part with ours is you can go up to 7 days before their birthday and up to 7 days after their birthday with different messages. So one before their birthday, on their birthday, and then after their birthday. So, I take advantage of on the day of their birthday, it goes straight into their messenger instead of like my birthday last June, I had 200 plus messages posted on my Facebook wall. I didn't read most of them. I just liked them all. But if you sent me a message, a messenger, we had a conversation. And then 5 days after your birthday, I'm just asking you how your birthday was and what you have planned for the next year. Because I know most people love to talk about themselves, their whatever's coming up the next year, their family, their pets, their kids, how the economy is so amazing that the bank is overflowing with money right now. So there's always a conversation started. And so, it's like you said, Kyle, that people are looking for, that next income level or that next, way to make money outside of what they're already doing, whether it's full time or, I always call it EMS part time because, hypothetically, we only worked 11 or 12 days a month usually, you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
but we were there for
Yep. I'm
24
at
hours.
11 myself. Yep.
Yep. But, and then,
121 days a year, and that's if I don't take any vacations. So it's
yep. Yeah. Yep. So, it doesn't matter if I was on shift or not, the software is working. And then the engagers going out there, like yesterday I said I did 249 engagements to all my friends on Facebook. If my friends post something that's up on my wall, it's going to make a comment in regards to that specific post, whether it's, them on vacation for, a post about vacation, whether it's a post about business, whatever it is, the AI is going to pick it up. And like Kyle was saying earlier, it's going to really dive into that specific post and what it's about and put a comment in there, which is technically, yes, helping that person out on my Facebook list. But once they come back and start engaging, a conversation, then Facebook actually takes your algorithm for both ways. And then, another big one is the disconnector, because the more friends you have on Facebook, the smaller your algorithm is going to be, because the more dead weight you have with no reactions, no comments, no messaging, Facebook takes that as a negative. So you don't, and there's, for whatever reason, there's companies out there that are going, oh, get your 5,000 friends as quick as you can, which is the worst thing you can do for your Facebook algorithm. You want the least amount of people with the most engagement.
mm,
Now, yes, we're not going to kick off our family, our friends, mom and dad, whatever, that might not engage with us, but we don't want to keep other entrepreneurs on there that aren't engaging. So the disconnector will go through and look at how many comments they've done, how many reactions they've done, how many messages, and then, show you that exactly so you can get rid of that dead weight. And then let stories drive, since we were talking about other forms of medication, LSD for short, actually takes your Facebook story, and if you can set up multiple ways, if you do a poll, it'll comment on the polls. It'll comment if somebody gives you a reaction, or like mine, I do a thought of the day every day on my Facebook. So anybody that views it, it would just, like Kyle watch it today, it would be, hey, Kyle, thanks for viewing my Facebook story. Can't wait to see you on Tuesday's video. It just is a daily reminder that I have a video coming the next day, to build that engagement again. And then Easy Messenger will go out there and engage, whether it'll scrape a Facebook group for you and build a list for you, or a Facebook ad, or even a post. So that's the main software, and that's all automated. And I just turn my computer on in the morning, and it's set at different times or frequencies to run everything. And it does it all for me. So it literally has freed up my time to, this is the second, well, one was a phone interview, and this is a podcast right now, this morning. And then I've also done a training on the software this morning while the software is running right now. So it gives you, frees up your time for those money making activities instead of the mundane every day. We know
yeah.
we have to do this to grow our business, but we got to find time for it kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
No, it
what I
doesn't
found.
actually create the posts for you, or does it sometimes, depending on.
Yeah, we have a software AI content creator that'll actually create the post based on the information you give it, and then you just have to go schedule it.
Go schedule
So
it.
yeah, so if you go to
Now,
my
how
Facebook
does
page,
what you're using turn into actual, like, you call it as a umbrella, you call it a lead generator. So how does it actually, like, what are the leads? Are there people that actually want to know how to do this themselves, or do you have another product that you sell that it's, or like you said, you could go to brick and mortar as well, not just online, online entrepreneur.
Yep. Yeah. So it does. A lot of them are, talking about the software and the automation, because one or two posts a day talk about either AI or just business in general questions. So it brings up the scheduled posts, bring up a lot of conversation about growing the business or implementing AI. Like one of the posts I use a lot is, AI isn't going to take your job. It's the person behind AI that will take your job.
Yeah.
So, it's, which is true. We talked about VAs this morning. VAs, they want to, they want to book the calls for you. They want to set the schedule. They want to do all that for you. Where, talking to a VA this morning, like, my software does all that already. What can you do for me that software doesn't do already?
Mm.
So they're kind of, the ones I've talked to are kind of behind the eight ball, where if they learn the software, now they could actually add more clients, but the software is working for the clients. So it's really known AI is going to take over. Not, well, I shouldn't say take over. AI is going to be at the forefront of building big businesses, and it just depends on who knows how to run it, and that's where the money's going to be. But it's creating that engagement, which creates that conversation, which then opens up the know, like, and trust factor. Then you get to really see what there might not be an issue. It might be, I've got a couple of coaches that I use now based off of our talks off of Facebook, where I've got a lot of clients that need that extra help in growing their business or starting their business. One last year was a teacher, and her and her husband had a talk, and she went to part-time teaching because she didn't agree with what the school district was doing for COVID and the politics that they brought into it. And if she went part-time, she could pick and choose what school she worked at and who she worked with. So she had to find a secondary income. So that's how it all came off the birthday post, because it asked what you were doing this upcoming, the upcoming year.
Oh, so then when does it switch from engaging to as a lead generator? When does it switch into you actually having a real phone, a real conversation with them about purchasing or giving them the help they need with your services?
Yeah, so basically right after their first comment back to me in Messenger, and with that, and a good nugget is, like, I try not to just come back with another typed up message to you. I try, and I do a lot of it, is that I come back with a voice message right away to them. Hey Kyle, that's awesome, sounds good, whatever, the message was. But Facebook lets you use your voice, a voice message. And
No,
so
that's not AI. That's actually you, right?
that's me talking to him. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because there's software, my software has my AI voice, my podcast software, and I can drop in, drop in copy and get me to talk about it. So
Yep, I have a streaming TV service that is completely hands off. When you call the phone number or go to the website, it's all AI.
yeah,
But when they respond to me in Facebook Messenger, I use my voice, and I'll go quick and look at their Facebook profile, so I can be like, hey Kyle, looks like you had a great vacation, or it looks like business is going good, or whatever. That way they know that I've looked at their Facebook profile, because I just related to something that they posted recently. But then it's also me talking to them in my voice, so there's that different.
there's a little bit more connection there. Yeah.
Versus
Now you keep on mentioning Facebook, but does this also go into LinkedIn as well? Do you have a LinkedIn?
Yep. Facebook obviously is the big one, since it's got 4 point some billion people on it.
Yeah, it's got a million.
Yeah. And then we do LinkedIn, and we've actually got a new cool software coming out that will actually do a video message back to you. I could sit here and do a 30-second video message back to you instead of my voice. So that's pretty cool. I actually did one this morning for a gentleman, and I didn't know until I went and looked at his page. He was a first responder. Now he then went to be a doctor, and he's retired, but he helps people over 50 get back into shape. And I did a video back to him, and he's like, that's the first time I've ever seen this video message.
Yeah, there's been some, like, back when I did. Oh, here's another one. Are we mutual on this one? Did you use send out cards at all?
I did, but very limited. But I almost thought about getting back into it again, because I think it was last year, I received 2, and it started like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. When I first started doing that, I was in medical sales at the time, and I got introduced to send out cards, and of course it's an MLM, and so that's okay. I didn't have to. I wasn't on the big time recruiting path for that people, because ultimately I just wanted to use it for my sales. I wanted to have that awesome follow-up that is a real card. I used to get thank you phone calls for my thank you cards. So I would send a card with I would even take a picture of the director that I spoke with, or their product, or, a picture of their ambulance or their hospital. And I would send them back a card. And, hey, thanks so much. Well, it was great, conversation about this. We look forward to implementing blah, 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 blah. And I'd get phone calls like, hey, I just got your card. I've never got a card before. And you stand out. So, send out cards. I tried to get every realtor I ever met. I was like, you've got to have send out cards. Any sales rep I ever met, you've got to have send out cards. And people just, it's still another thing to do. You still have to get on and do it. But, once you learn it, it wasn't that hard. But it really sets you apart. And the ones that used it, loved it, and had that differentiation. And the ones that didn't, who knows what they're doing now. But it was definitely pretty cool. I've recently just started thinking about possibly using it again, because a gentleman that I've been talking with to help a podcast that he's trying to get off the ground, that's going to be a 501c3 entity. But that podcast, when I mentioned to him, hey, what are you doing after guests come on? I've got an idea. He's like, shoot, tell me what about it. I'm like, it's called send out cards, or there's a couple of them now, AIM cards. Like there's a couple of different people, but they all stem from the concept of the send out card people, right? Some people have split off and created their own companies, just like a lot of people do in general, if they have the capital. But he's like, oh my God, that's such a great idea for my guests to get a physical card once they're being on my podcast. And of course, his guests are going to be ideal for him because they're corporate guests that eventually want to have some sort of corporate, entity come in and do this motivation thing that's the reason why he's doing his podcast. So I may be getting back into send out cards myself and be running that division for him too.
Yeah, no, I think it just put something tangible in their hands, and people keep the cards for, especially if it's a holiday card, for 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks out.
Well, then you set it up as a campaign, and next thing you know, a year like realtors, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, realtors, listen, a thank you card for selling the house with a gift, and then 6 months in, hey, how's everything going? And then a year in, hey, it's your year anniversary. By the way, rip off the bottom of this and give it to your friend. You'll get you'll get a finder fee or something, or like some sort of, referral, but, and some people just, I'm too busy or whatever, but, it's all in what the efforts that you want to put in and where you want to put your advertising dollars, of course. And, the software that you're speaking of sounds so much smarter than like Google ads or Facebook ads too, because it's not just a blanket and find out what kind of fish you're catching. It's going out there and saying, no, that's the fish I want right there. That group right there, that specific niche is where I want to concentrate on. And it goes and targets them specifically. So that's what's great about your software compared to just having a blanket, ad spend on. And that's what I try to tell people with podcasting. Podcasting is a fantastic lead generator. Probably not as hands off as your program, but you would come up with like a combination where it gets people to come to a webinar that talks about podcasting and building a business and rapport and niche and being an authority. And a lot of people want to start podcasts, but they don't know how easy it is. So it sounds like a very good hand-in-hand thing to utilize in any business, your software or podcasting. So we'll have to see where this takes us eventually.
I mean, especially with Facebook, there's a group for everything.
Yeah.
And, whether it's, like WPW, Wolf Parkinson White syndrome. Like, I had a friend in Colorado that her daughter had it. I was like, well, that's a very, very, very rare, heart condition, and there's a handful of Facebook groups about it. So that was my test to prove that there was something for everybody on Facebook. And yeah, you can target the group, or you can target the specific ad. You could go, if you're in, weight loss, you can go to Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig and specifically target those clientele because you already know they're in weight loss, and spending a lot of money on those products. So your product probably is just as good, if not better, and you already know that niche that you're targeting right there is they're looking for, and they got the money to spend. So it makes it very easy to target your specific niche market.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. And thanks so much for coming on the Elevate and the Ignition Path podcast and sharing your backstory. We appreciate it. That's also a very challenging thing to do. So I want to thank you for sharing your story and your path to help those first responders out there that may be looking for help or, trying to normalize this. And that's what you and I spoke about the other day is as first responders, we need to normalize the conversation of our mental health. And as soon as we can normalize it, then more people are going to be able to get the proper help they need. And it doesn't always mean it's sitting on a couch with some doctor on the other side of you trying to shrink your head. Doesn't mean that. It could be anything. The main thing it doesn't mean is the 6 o'clock in the morning bar. That's that's not the most ideal way in surrounding. Because I read the book The Body Keeps a Score, and they spoke about veterans. That why they formed these VFWs is because of that camaraderie and putting them back into those situations that they felt alive in because they were fighting for their lives, literally, and going back and being with their peers is definitely a part of why those were formed. But it's what are you doing when you're with your peers? Is it damaging you or creating some sort of disease that's going to fight you in the end and be a downfall? hanging out with your buddies is one thing, hanging out with your buddies and only drinking and not having anything else other than, and doing it on a daily basis. That's just not the healthy way to do it. And if you're struggling with that out there, feel free. I know for a fact, Zach, his phone will always be open for first responders or anybody struggling with sobriety. Actually, plug your podcast. Your podcast is definitely, if you hear what the name of his podcast, you're a business person that struggles with addiction, you may want to tune into this guy's podcast.
Yeah, just go to soberpreneur.life. So soberpreneur.life, LIFE.
All right.
And yes, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, if you're a first responder trying to figure out what to do, trying to see if you need help, there's plenty of stuff out there. Contact me or Zach or anybody else from the podcast that I have come on. They're all people that are willing to help us as first responders. If you're a first responder and you have an entrepreneurial brain or entrepreneurial itch, or you've tried things and you don't know where your entrepreneurial path is going, don't hesitate. If you want to start podcasting, reach out to me. You want to start getting leads from Facebook and LinkedIn, reach out to Zach. We're here to help. That's one thing I know that him and I agreed upon too, is that our service to our community has now kind of come over to our business, and we want to just serve other business people to make it smarter. I was doing podcast or post-production in 2 hours before. Now I'm doing it a lot smarter. I'd like to teach that. So I'm going to be servicing those who want to know how to do it better. So we're here to serve. We're here to, we are here to have a business, of course, but ultimately it's with a server's heart. So, and I think you agree to that, right, Zach?
100%. Yeah. 100% there. It's, even though, I walked away from EMS 7-8 years ago, whatever it is, that's still the whole brotherhood, sisterhood doesn't leave you, but the whole helping others doesn't leave you. And even, when I reached out for help with my addiction last year, there were still people there that wanted help. So, it's still there, and definitely something I know both of us still want to do, no matter whether it's on the streets or on the front line or on the business aspect of it too. We both want to do it.
Exactly. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming on to the Ignition Path podcast and Elevate. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If anything you heard during this dual episode resonates with you, or you feel like you need to share it with a friend of yours or another brother or sister in the EMS or not EMS, first responder world or the business world, don't hesitate to just hit that share button and send it off to them, and we'd really appreciate it. Zach, thanks so much for coming on. We'll talk to you later.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.